the country. We're going to grow jobs. We're going to be growing everything.
Democrats raising concerns about the GOP tax bill.
This absolutely horrible tax cut. We can't let them get away with it.
If this plan goes through, average family household income will go up $4,000 to $9,000.
An FBI agent removed from the Mueller investigation after he sent anti-Trump and pro-Hillary text messages.
Maybe they need to pause the Mueller investigation. You can have zero confidence that they were done fairly.
ABC News suspends Brian Ross over serious error in his Trump-Flynn report.
One of the most recklessly dishonest reporters I've ever dealt with, and I've dealt with quite a few.
There's not many.
Fourth hour of Fox and Friends weekend on this Sunday. You know, our producers were just in our ears saying, why don't you guys have this much energy at 6 a.m.?
You try to get up at 4 a.m. and have that much.
I look out at America and I say, at 6 a.m., did you have more energy than after you had a whole pot of coffee like me?
Right.
And now it's 9 o'clock and you're ready to go.
Yeah, and they do bring you coffee like halfway through to fill it up
for you all morning long.
Yeah, it's like an IV, and it's so great. It's always a good time when you're here.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate you being here.
I love being here with you guys.
Appreciate it.
We've had a lot of news to cover.
It has been a big and busy news morning. I think that phrase is overused, a busy news day. We say it every day. Like today really is. There's a lot going on, and especially if you're checking the president's Twitter feed.
Yeah, it keeps going. It doesn't stop.
And one of the things he jumped on was the fact that ABC News has now suspended Brian Ross for a month with no pay after what was billed as a bombshell report on Friday morning that turned out to be fake news. ABC putting out a statement, we deeply regret and apologize for the serious error we made yesterday. This is Sunday about Friday. The reporting conveyed by Brian Ross during the special report had not been fully vetted through our editorial standards process. That's the key part there, which is that, and we'll get to the president's reaction in a minute, which is to set this up on Friday about 11 a.m. The news breaks earlier in the morning that General Flynn is going to plead guilty to lying to the FBI. What does this mean? Well, ABC goes with a special report from Brian Ross saying that it means that General Flynn, according to a source close to him, is going to turn on the president and say that during the campaign, quote unquote, candidate Trump directed Flynn to go and reach out to the Russians. That led immediately to the idea there was collusion. Maybe it will lead to impeachment. And we saw the Dow drop 350 points. 350 points on the idea that there was going to be political instability. A few hours later,
and then the market's closed.
Market's closed.
And then a few hours later,
ABC says,
we missed it. We got it wrong. Sorry. Might have been a big error, too.
Well, what's interesting is we had Governor Huckabee on who reminded all of us that this isn't the first time that this reporter, Brian Ross, has gotten it very wrong. We know that with the Aurora shooting in the theater, he blamed that on a Tea Partier. And Michelle Malkin reminded us that all of the errors he's made have always seemed to put conservatives in a bad light.
That's right. And the president gets criticized by his critics who say, well, you're discrediting the press. You're impugning the press by calling them fake news or very fake news. How about the fact that the press is discrediting themselves by the way they conduct themselves and the zealotry with which they pursue anything that impugns President Trump and tries to make him, to discredit him, but anything that would,
because it's not just about Brian Ross.
The other side.
ABC News says in their statement, this did not go through our standards. We didn't vet this. Well, wait a second. This is not a minor story. This is a major news day on Friday.
Yes.
It's a story suggesting there was collusion in the campaign. Aha! We finally have this. Is it because there are people in newsrooms who, when there's an anti-Trump story that fits their narrative, they say, yeah, this must be true.
They run with it.
It was one source close to Flynn, and it was wrong.
They wish the news. It's almost like they're cheerleading.
They're cheerleading, and you wonder why. So why did it not go through that normal process? We heard,
or maybe there isn't as much of a process as you think.
Maybe there is, or maybe they were just getting to get
anonymous.
The Republican win on taxes in the Senate off the headlines. They wanted to rush to it so they could get that story off the headlines.
Well, the president jumped on that this morning, saying in a tweet, quote, people who lost money when the stock market went down 350 points based on the false and dishonest reporting of Brian Ross of ABC News, he's been suspended, should consider hiring a lawyer and suing ABC for the damages this bad reporting has caused many millions of dollars. And we had a couple guests saying, well, maybe he's half joking, maybe not.
Can you sue someone for that?
We should have got one of the
In America, you can sue anybody for anything.
You can sue for hot coffee spilling on you, so why not?
You never know. I mean, he's saying fake news has real-life consequences. People's bank accounts went down because of a false and ideologically motivated, I believe, report.
And here's why it matters, because this is part of a bigger question about whether the investigation of President Trump has been fair and whether or not the investigation of Hillary Clinton and her email
ever was
fair, was ever thorough, by Mr. James Comey, who is now out there on Twitter saying that he's a voice of truth and reason. But in fact, we learn overnight, our own James Rosen and others are reporting about the fact that an FBI agent who is detailed to the Robert Mueller probe has now been pulled. Why has he been pulled? Because it turns out that he was caught sending text messages to another FBI official that were anti-Trump, hate-filled, anti-Trump, and pro-Clinton. And we learn before he was ever on the Mueller probe, what was he doing?
Yeah, his name is Peter Stork. I think we're pronouncing that correct, but may not be. He's been at the FBI for years, counterintelligence and others. So this isn't his first rodeo, and the previous two rodeos for this particular agent were the Clinton email investigation and the FBI investigation into the Trump dossier that was doctored to begin with. So if you've got Clinton folks paying for a dossier that makes its way to an FBI agent who's a Clinton supporter, and then before that it had interviewed Hillary Clinton famously about her email scandal, and it was a white glove interview that had already been predetermined because they'd already written 2 months earlier that they were going to exonerate her.
He debriefed Comey about that interview, and even before the interview happened, James Comey drafted that statement exonerating Hillary Clinton a couple of months before they even did the interview.
Right. This is not just any run-of-the-mill agent inside the FBI. This guy was all over the place.
High level.
Very high level, which is why Representative Nunes, when he heard that this person was pulled from the investigation, wanted to know why, and he was stonewalled. It looks like they did not let him see why, and it only came out now, what, 3-4 months later?
Because it just came out now. Here's a statement from Devin Nunes. He says, by hiding from Congress and from the American people, documented political bias by a key FBI head investigator, that's a key part, head investigator for both the Russia collusion probe and the Clinton email investigation, the FBI and DOJ engaged in a willful attempt to thwart Congress's constitutional oversight responsibility. To your point, Rachel, that you were making is, this guy wasn't pulled off the Mueller investigation yesterday. That was about 6 months ago. We're just now learning why he was pulled off the investigation.
Right.
Devin Nunes and others have been trying to get that information. They haven't. Stonewall, because it looks really bad.
By the way, where's
this? Your investigator has political bias.
Well, hang on 1 second, though. So the agent who was mixed up in the Clinton probe and maybe didn't do a fair, thorough job because he was pro-Clinton, then goes to the Mueller probe and is investigating President Trump, even though he's anti-Trump, gets pulled from there. Where is he now? What's his new job?
The HR department of the FBI.
We're not making this up. He works at the FBI HR department. He's in charge of human resources. Fact. That's crazy. Greg Jarrett was on the show.
Yeah, we had him on, and he talked about this contempt that Devin Nunes and others in Congress are calling for. And also, we asked him what we should do at this point in the investigation, knowing what we know now about how unfair it's been.
The Department of Justice, the FBI, and to some extent Robert Mueller, have been trying to hide it from Congress. And that constitutes contempt. Chairman Nunes of the House Intelligence Committee needs to pursue the contempt citation, have Congress vote on it, refer it to a federal judge for prosecution against Rod Rosenstein and Christopher Wray, the FBI director, because they're the ones who've been obstructing it. And I guarantee you this FBI agent, Peter Strzok, when he's put under oath, will invoke the Fifth.
How deep does the deep state go? And if you feel like your justice is being politicized, then you don't actually have the rule of law. You have ideologues in government who are willing to overturn and take on the sitting and elected president of the United States.
But the current head of the Justice Department, Attorney General Jeff Sessions, put out a statement last night after all of these facts emerged saying that he thinks this merits more review. Now, does that mean they're just going to do some behind-the-scenes review in Washington that sits on a desk somewhere? Or will they appoint a second special counsel that says, let's figure out what happened with this FBI
now
agent?
There's an investigation into the investigation.
Well, maybe they need it.
Just to me, when I look at this, I look at the FBI and I say, this whole thing needs to be cleaned up. And maybe that's the call for the president right now.
Maybe
he needs to clean up the FBI.
Well, a lot of swamps being drained. But every time you drain a swamp, then you learn about a new swamp that you didn't think was a swamp.
That's right.
Where there are people embedded in government with ideological motives. In this case, protecting the Clintons and going after Donald Trump.
I leave you with James Comey, who tweeted yesterday that he wanted to paraphrase the Buddha. 3 things cannot be long hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth. Well, James Comey, did you get at the truth in the Clinton investigation? Doesn't sound like it.
It's a great point.
Deep thoughts, though.
Deep thoughts and readings from Ed Henry for the remainder of the program.
I'm just quoting James Comey, who's quoting or paraphrasing Buddha.
All right. Well, turning now to your headlines and a Fox News alert. Moments ago, police confirming one person is in custody after a driver hit and killed one person and injured at least 5 others in New York City. Police say the driver targeted the victims outside of a Queens nightclub, reportedly after a knife fight. The NYPD does not believe terror is suspected. The incident comes just weeks after a terrorist plot into a pickup truck through a busy bike path in Manhattan, killing 8 people. A scary moment on the basketball court. Medical personnel racing to save the life of a player who collapsed on the floor.
And there is tremendous concern for the young man who is on the floor there in front of the South Carolina State bench.
An athletic trainer performing CPR on Ty Solomon of South Carolina State, reviving him as he lay unconscious. Medics say he went into cardiac arrest. He's now conscious and alert in a hospital. And House GOP leaders unveiling their plan to avoid a government shutdown. The measure would give more time for a bipartisan talk on a bigger budget agreement. Democrats say they will not vote for a bill without a plan to protect the children of immigrants. But Republicans also have some concerns, some saying that they're being set up for a pre-Christmas deal, and they won't like the temporary spending bill, which expires on Friday.
Producers to make you read that Wisconsin got thumped. They were undefeated and they went down.
But Ed, you've been leading an effort or a campaign today for that 4th spot. What team do you think should be in the 4th spot?
What is it, UCF, Central Florida? They're one of the only, maybe the only undefeated team. 12-0.
They're 12-0. They won 62-55 yesterday. They beat Memphis, number 16 team in the country.
That must have been exciting. A lot of points.
Overtime game, a lot of points. If you win every game in the season, shouldn't you be in the playoff?
Yeah, Wisconsin was undefeated. That's what kept them in the playoff run. Now they're not. So what about the small schools? Let's fight for the little guy. Let's give them the 4th spot, UCF.
The forgotten man, the forgotten program. We'll see if they get a shot. Keep emailing us, friends at foxnews.com, about that. Congress getting back to work tomorrow on tax cuts for the American people. But will they be able to deliver that Christmas present? House Majority Whip Steve Scalise on where his chamber stands next.
Getting back to work on tax cuts tomorrow. The Senate narrowly passed the most sweeping changes to your taxes in decades, but there are still many differences to reconcile as the House and Senate head to conference committee.
So will they be able to deliver that Christmas present? Let's ask GOP Congressman and House Majority Whip Steve Scalise. Congressman, thanks for being here.
Morning.
Always great to see you. I hope your recovery continues to go well. Obviously, you've still been working hard, and you guys will continue to work hard because it's going to a conference committee. What are the key items that the House is going to be focused on delivering?
Well, first, good to be with you. The biggest things are to lower tax rates for families, to make our country competitive again. And look, I don't think anybody can overstate how important it is that when we cut the corporate rate, right now we have the highest corporate rate in the industrialized world, and it's killing jobs. We see thousands of jobs move overseas every year with big companies moving to Ireland, Canada. We're going to finally stop that and reverse that trend and bring those jobs back home to America. So if you look at the House and Senate bill, both of us are pretty close on that. There are some areas where we disagree. I would like to see a full repeal of the death tax. That's something that really hurts small businesses. It's probably the most unfair tax in the code. Streamlining and simplifying the code is so important. In our bill, over 90% of Americans will actually be able to do their taxes on a postcard. So when you look at the differences, they're not that big, but there are some key significant differences that the House and Senate need to work out. We're going to vote Monday to go to conference committee. I'm glad that the Senate passed a bill. Now let's get the differences worked out and get that on President Trump's desk by Christmas.
Congressman, I want to ask you a quick question. We all know you just went through yourself a horrific health scare. Beyond that, I mean, this was just a tragic situation, and you've come back so strong. When you look at the medical deductions, that the House version, as I recall, wants to eliminate that deduction. The Senate wants to expand it temporarily for 2 years. Do you think that you can really eliminate that when there are people around the country struggling with medical costs?
Well, we're going to look at that, but one thing you've got to keep in mind, in our bill, we actually double the standard deduction. So right now it's at $12,000 for a family. We go up to $24,000 for a family. That's going to cover a lot of people's medical expenses. Again, we're going to look at all these other differences in conference, but doubling the standard deduction, and we have a family tax credit in addition to other things. We reinstated the adoption tax credit. A lot of those things are going to help middle-class families who have been struggling, who haven't seen wage growth in a long time. Not only under our bill is the average family going to get over $1,200 a year back in their pockets from tax cuts, they're also going to see wage growth. Estimates are about $2,500 a family in wage growth that we're going to see just by getting the economy moving again.
Congressman, how about the repeal of the individual mandate in Obamacare? It was in the Senate version, not in the House version. Will we see it in the reconciled?
I think that's going to be a real important point of discussion. I would surely like to see not only the individual mandate repealed, but we need to continue moving and repeal and replace Obamacare like we passed in the House. President Trump has been really supportive of this because he sees how families are struggling under dramatically increased costs for health care because of Obamacare and the fewer choices that people have. In fact, in many states, you're seeing where nobody's going to provide insurance under Obamacare. Companies won't even write policies.
Congressman,
so we need to continue working on that.
Last question. We got 30 seconds. Are people going to get this by Christmas? Are you going to get it done, or is there going to be a lump of coal in the stocking?
We're going to get this for Christmas. Look, it's been a lump of coal for 8 years under Obama. We finally have a great president, President Trump, who wants to get the economy moving again and wants to provide real relief for middle-class families who are struggling. This bill delivers. It'll be a great Christmas present, and you're going to see this economy take off next year, be the best New Year's resolution we can have.
And the best Christmas present actually is you back healthy with your family. We're happy for that, and everybody should be thankful all across the country.
We are blessed. I appreciate all the prayers, and just lucky to be alive and really looking forward to a great Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Congressman. Thanks a lot.
Same to y'all.
Well, could the House hold the DOJ and FBI in contempt? One lawmaker says politics has tainted Clinton and Trump investigations. So what now? We'll bring it to you.
Okay, so we've all heard of Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs theory, which shows how humans prioritize certain desires, and love and belonging is right smack in the middle. But these days, the middle isn't enough. Our next guest says that expectations have shifted to make it actually higher on the pyramid. Eli Finkel, the author of The All or Nothing Marriage, is here, and he joins me now. So you say that in your book, the quote, the average marriage has been getting worse over time. However, the best marriages today are better than the best marriages of earlier eras. Indeed, they are the best marriages the world has ever known. I think that's such great news. And so I think as I've been reading about this book, it seems like it's kind of the best practices of the best marriages.
Yeah, it's a book that talks about the way marriage has changed over time, the way our expectations have changed from the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy up to the top of Maslow's hierarchy, and as a result, it's harder to have a fulfilling marriage than it was in the past. But for those of us who get it right, the level of fulfillment is really special.
Absolutely. So some people feel like we're asking too much out of marriage, right? Yeah. That we want our partner to be our best friend, to share all our hobbies, to be, super cooperative on all the duties that surround marriage and children. So how do we manage expectations in a marriage so that we can all be happy?
Yeah, I mean, the truth is having high expectations puts us at risk, because the higher the expectations, the more likely we are to be disappointed by what we get. And it's for that reason that many of us are unhappy today in a marriage that would have been fulfilling for us, say, in the 1950s, for example. But it's also expectations that lead us to push for something special, that lead us to try to say, look, we can achieve something truly great here. And because we're able to push like that, we can achieve this level of fulfillment that was out of reach previously.
So you talk about in the book how we can reframe things. So, for example, if you say, my husband is late because, now you can say he's late because he's a thoughtless jerk. Yeah. Or you could change it and say, he really wants to get home. He's just stuck in traffic.
Exactly. We have a good deal of freedom and autonomy to decide how we're going to try to explain why he or she forgot something that was important to us, why he or she decided to do something generous for us. And if we want to have a fulfilling marriage and want to be happy in the relationship, making generous sort of explanations for our partner's behavior is a huge step in the right direction.
Right. It really puts you in the driver's seat and makes you see that you have more control. I always think that a lot of it has to do with how we feel, how our partner makes us feel as well. Yeah. One of the things that you talk about and that you say healthy marriages have is time together. Yeah. So how can couples really do that? By the way, I don't know if you know, I have 8 kids. Not easy to find alone time, but I have always believed that our family is only as healthy as our marriages.
Yeah. Today, we put a whole lot more time into very, very sensitive, attentive parenting than we did in the past. And I'm certainly not going to say we shouldn't be doing that. Right. But a lot of that parenting time comes at the cost of alone time with our spouse. And so an interesting question for a lot of families to address, and it sounds like one that you've taken seriously in your marriage as well, is how can I allocate the time in such a way that the relationship stays strong? And oh, by the way, having a strong marriage is one of the best things you can do if you want to raise healthy kids.
It's the greatest gift you can give your kids. Now, you actually suggest, if you have a grandparent nearby, to sort of have a standing date where the kids go to the grandparents' house.
One of the ways that we can try to have one of these all marriages, the top of Maslow's hierarchy marriages, is to try to develop a deeper understanding of each other, a deeper connection with each other, and there's not going to be particularly good substitutes for time together.
Eli, this is great stuff. Best practices from the best marriages. Thanks for joining, and I hope people will look into it because I think this is a really important topic.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it is too.
All right. Could the House hold the DOJ and the FBI in contempt? One lawmaker says politics has tainted the Clinton and Trump investigations. So what now? Byron York's take on that coming up next. And these proud Americans are delivering some Christmas cheer to our troops overseas. And you can get involved too. We're going to help you understand what they're doing.
A Fox News alert on our top story this morning. A top FBI agent, Peter Strzok, pulled from the Mueller probe after sending anti-Trump and pro-Clinton text messages. And this agent, he was also involved in both the Russia collusion and Hillary Clinton email investigation.
House Intel Chair Devin Nunes outraged, saying, quote, by hiding from Congress and from the American people, documented political bias by a key FBI head investigator for both the Russia probe and the Clinton email investigation. The FBI and the Justice Department engaged in a willful attempt to thwart Congress's constitutional oversight responsibility. Boy, is that a mouthful.
It is.
Wow. And here to weigh in, Fox News contributor and Washington Examiner chief political correspondent Byron York. Another mouthful. Byron, thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning to you too. It's a big morning. A lot of news. What are your thoughts on all this?
Well, the reason Devin Nunes, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, is so mad is because he feels the FBI and the Justice Department have been stonewalling the House about this. The House committee issued a subpoena to the FBI and Justice Department on August 24. It was about the Trump dossier. They had a lot of questions about the Trump dossier. Only issued the subpoena after the FBI refused to answer earlier questions. So the FBI still refuses to answer anything about this, and they've gotten information in little dribs and drabs, and even after 5 weeks ago, the Speaker of the House came out in support of Devin Nunes and said the FBI is, quote, stonewalling and needs to give this information now. Still, the news about Peter Strzok was news to Devin Nunes. He didn't know it before he read it in the papers.
So people have been accusing this president of trying to cover up something that went on. But is it not maybe the other way around? Has the FBI and the Justice Department not been covering up their insufficient investigations or political motivations? Is that what we're dealing with here?
Well, certainly there appears to be a problem in this Peter Strzok case because he's a very, very important FBI supervisor, an agent supervising investigations, and he was involved, as you've been reporting, in the Hillary Clinton email investigation. And then he was involved in the Trump-Russia counterintelligence information. Remember, that went on for nearly a year at the FBI before Robert Mueller was appointed in May, and then he was doing the same job with the Mueller investigation when he was reassigned in July because of these anti-Trump texts that he apparently exchanged with another top FBI official.
Well, Byron, though, James Comey, though, is a fighter for truth, justice, and the American way. And you know how I know that?
Yes.
I've been reading his Twitter account, his Instagram account, and he has these beautiful scenes of streams. Justice rolls down like waters and righteousness, like an ever-flowing stream. It doesn't seem to be like he got to the truth in the Clinton probe. It seems like he blew it.
Well, there are so many questions about the Clinton probe, and there were at the time. Remember when Hillary Clinton interviewed the FBI with the FBI? It was over the 4th of July weekend in 2016. It was on a Saturday, and by Tuesday morning, first business day, wow, they exonerated
that interview
her.
Too.
Right.
And then what we found out later was that they had basically made the decision well ahead of time, not only before interviewing Mrs. Clinton, but before interviewing other key witnesses in that case.
Byron, do you think that this new information will have to prompt the FBI to go back and relook at the Clinton case, or do you think they're just going to say, well, it's done?
I think some of that depends on Congress, and as you've been reporting, Devin Nunes is thinking about a contempt citation against the FBI and against the Justice Department over this stonewalling, not because of the underlying conduct so much as because of the fact that they will not tell Congress what they've been asked. And Devin Nunes himself can't do that. The key person to look at here is the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan. If he stands behind an effort to cite them in contempt, then it could well happen. On the other hand, if he stands behind it, the threat will be credible, and perhaps the FBI will then produce the information.
Byron, 30 seconds, but you and I both know the Speaker of the House has to deal with the end of the year budget negotiations and DACA, and he's going to say, I'm busy and I don't want to pick a fight with the FBI. So it seems unlikely. Do we need a special counsel, basically?
Well, in Washington, I think there is a lot of opposition to yet another special counsel because this could be handled in the ordinary course of congressional oversight if the FBI and the Justice Department could just be persuaded to hand over information, and perhaps the threat of contempt will persuade them to do that.
Interesting.
Good point.
Byron, you've been around the block on these issues, and it'll be interesting to see where it goes next. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, let's turn to some other headlines. The Trump administration pulling out of another UN pact. The U.S. informing the UN it will no longer take part in the global compact on migration. The White House says the New York Declaration, which pledges to help refugees and migrants resettle, does not align with U.S. immigration policies, at least under the Trump administration. This comes after the U.S. pulled out of another global pact, the Paris Climate Agreement, last summer. And in a rare public appearance, Jared Kushner will be discussing his efforts to forge an Israeli-Palestinian peace deal. The president's senior advisor and son-in-law will make a speech later today at the Sabin Forum in Washington, D.C. He'll be joined by Israeli-American media mogul Haim Sabin, who's always been influential on these matters. Thousands of protesters, meanwhile, demonstrating in Salt Lake City, Utah, ahead of President Trump's expected visit there tomorrow. The commander-in-chief likely to announce plans to reduce the size of the Bears Ears and Grand Staircase national monuments, returning control of the land to the state. Opponents argue the monuments preserve history and boost the economy, while conservatives say that the Obama administration overstepped. Meanwhile, it's a jewel heist with a twist. A mother using her kids to do her dirty work. Surveillance video shows the young boy going behind the counter at an Arkansas store. He takes necklaces and other items from the case, his mother pointing out the ones she wants, even sending them back multiple times. The family taking off, getting away with, yes, more than $30,000 worth of jewelry. No arrests have been made, at least not yet. Side.
You hope that the answer is yes in situations like that. All right, once again, American companies delivering holiday cheer to our nation's heroes, donating hundreds of Christmas trees to troops serving overseas. Here with more about this special case, Alex, pronounce it? Jareggi. I was going to butcher it. Senior Director of Operations for DHL Express, Joe DiDomenici, owner of Dee's Nursery, and Lieutenant Colonel Tommy Sullivan, who's received these trees before while deployed. Thank you for your service, sir, of course. Thank you all for joining us this morning. So tell us how the Dees got involved with working with DHL and then getting trees to the troops.
Well, about 14 years ago, almost to the day, a lady came into our store and asked us to send a tree to her son who was serving at the time, and we didn't know how to do it. Luckily for us, Jim Adelis from Adelis International Security works at JFK, knows Kathy from DHL, Kathy O'Reilly, and the rest is history. For 14 years now, we've been sending thousands of trees over the course of those years to the men and women serving. And it's a great way for my family, our team, to really support the men and women that protect us.
Very cool. And tell me, Alex, how does one ship a Christmas tree to the Middle East?
That's what I'm wondering.
So what will happen is tomorrow the trees will be picked up and sent to our Cincinnati hub on our 767, and then we have a direct flight that goes all the way to Bahrain, direct to the Middle East, and from there at our Bahrain hub, it'll be distributed to Afghanistan, Kuwait, and the forces that are also serving in the Kingdom of Bahrain.
Wow, very cool.
Tommy, how does it feel to receive a tree? I mean, at this time of year, knowing you're being thought of.
You get so busy over there, sometimes the holidays sneak up on you, but when those trees arrive, it brings you back. It brings you back home, brings you back into the holiday, and remember, brings you back down and have a soulful thought.
That's right, and our heroes aren't just getting trees, they're getting letters from kids. I love this part of what we're doing here.
Well, when you get a care package deployed overseas and it's got letters maybe written to you, heartfelt thoughts from kids just saying, hey, thank you for your service, it really does mean a lot, doesn't it?
They gather around a table. Now, this is a plane load of packages and trees, so there's quite a bit coming. And I'm in communication with the team over there now, and they're expecting these packages and with orders to get them far and wide, because it's quite a bit, and they like kids.
That's right.
They're like kids.
Can I quick read
Can we ask you a couple questions real quick? So you're writing to a soldier, right? For the holidays, for Christmas. What does it mean to write to our troops defending our country?
It really is like, it has a lot of meaning. It's really, I love writing to them because it gives them so much pleasure and they're so happy when they get them.
Absolutely. I can confirm, as can the Colonel, that is the case. So thank you very much for what you guys are doing. Appreciate it. Keep writing. That's an order. I can't give any orders anymore. You can.
Everybody takes orders.
The Ds and DHS, as well as the military, great partnership here. Where can folks learn more or contribute if they want to?
With DHL, Citizens for Soldiers in Service, and we're ready to go.
And
Thanks for coming. It's a great
Oceanside,
cause.
New York.
Yes.
Very cool. All right. Well, how will the stock market respond tomorrow after the Senate passed the tax bill? Let's ask Maria Bartiromo, as she thinks there'll be a big rebound next.